Hello, this is Unsung with GameLeap, and in today's video we're going to be covering some of the macro changes for Season 14. As you know, the map and the objectives around the map are changing. This of course is going to result in the game being played a completely different way. In today's video we're going to be breaking down the importance of the new Void Grub camp, explaining how we can get the most out of it, and then also covering the new Rift Herald and the ramifications that it will have for the game. Make sure that you like the video and that you sub to the GameLeap YouTube channel. We're going to have tons of Season 14 content going up as soon as possible, and we really don't want you guys to miss anything valuable. Let's go ahead and get right into this video, starting off with Void Grubs. The Void Grubs are a brand new 3-monster jungle camp that replaces Rift Herald in the ultra early game. This camp spawns in at 5 minutes and then 5 minutes after all 3 grubs are killed. So if you kill the grubs at 6 minutes, for example, the next grub spawn will then be in 11 minutes. The primary purpose of this camp is to give top lane more impact by having an objective nearby that also synergizes with the primary top lane game plan, which is going to be split pushing. If you kill a Void Grub, it will then grant you a buff called Hunger of the Void. This buff can stack up to 6 times depending on how many Void Grubs that you killed. If your team only gets 1 Void Grub, then the buff will be in its weakest state. If you get 3, then of course it's going to be a little bit stronger. Once you hit 5 or 6, however, you will also spawn Void Mites in addition to dealing bonus true damage over time to any and all structures. Void Mites function pretty similarly to a Bel'Veth Remora. If you haven't played Bel'Veth, essentially she spawns a weaker version of a minion that's primary focus is to turn off the tower's backdoor protection and also be an additional tower shot for you. They're weaker and they deal less damage than normal minions, but them just being alive gives you more opportunity to interact with the turret. The true damage aspect is really nice on this Hunger of the Void buff, however it's made even stronger because the Void Mites will also apply this true damage burn over time to structures. Alrighty, now that we've explained what the grubs are and what they do, let's go ahead and get into the technical side of things. The Void Grub buff is so strong it's going to impact 4 out of 5 roles on the map in League. The most obvious role it's going to affect is the jungler. Of course the jungler will have to play for getting those 5-minute mites. The top laner will also be drawn to this objective because this is of course one of the avenues for us to get more impact. Whenever it comes to taking Rift Herald, mid is mid and they're forced to react to any objective that's done around their lane, that being Dragon or the Void Grubs. But second most important of all these roles has to be support. If you've played League at all in the last year and a half, I'm sure that you understand just how important it is for your support to be at the first Rift Herald when your jungler is taking it. This will allow you to force the Rift Herald, and if a skirmish breaks out, you're always up a man. After we get the Rift, we can then leverage this advantage to go and collect plates from either topside or from mid lane. The Void Grubs, while not being as strong as Rift, are a late game scaling mechanic. The true damage over time is going to be more effective when we have a higher amount of damage, meaning that we really want this camp in the early game as soon as possible because it will always scale alongside us and be very strong. As a support, it is normal to base at around level 3 after you win or lose your lane. From there, you can impact the map by going mid. What's going to change is that we're going to go mid straight into Void Grubs if we end up getting a pick, or if the mid pick isn't successful, then we walk straight to grubs. The supports on both sides of the map are going to start doing this, which is going to force skirmishes around this camp very often in the early game. If the skirmish isn't forced, then the team that wins the grubs secure a massive lead over the other team because they're simply going to be more effective in every single push that they do. This advantage will compound through turret plates, and then if we're able to secure the mites, we're a permanent split pushing threat that is very dangerous when left alone. So supports are going to be forced to roam more often and be more active on the map in the early stages of the game instead of having a lull to our pressure. It is not uncommon for you to take a roam currently and then just walk straight back down to bot lane because the roam doesn't work out. Now, if we play this properly by basing at level 3, we can impact the game as early as 5 minutes and then create a lead there instead of having to coin flip with our jungler. While support is the role that is most impacted by this, top is going to have to recall around the same timer, your jungler is going to have to be prepared. This is going to happen after your second clear. The mid laner will have to take a similar timer to the top, of course making sure that they have priority in their lane permanently, and the ADC is really going to have to worry about a freeze being set up bot lane because they will be stuck in a 1v1 vacuum. This is great because it reduces the reliance that we'll have on our lane partner if you are playing a marksman, and the support will have more agency without it being so overwhelming. I guarantee you when pro play starts, we're going to see an incredible amount of really funny fights in the ultra early game due to the inclusion of the Void Grubs. Once the grubs are taken care of, what we need to be doing as a support player is getting vision 45 seconds before the second set of Void Grubs spawn in. If we can do this and our jungler ends up securing them, then we can run away with the game. As a mid and top laner, we'll also have to be aware of this timer, and of course the jungler should be tracking this by default. From my personal experience on the PvE, it would seem that the most popular timers are going to be about 5:30 and then at around 10:30 afterwards, which is when the second set of Void Grubs will spawn in. The second round of grubs are the ultra important ones, so we really need to ensure that we are there for that skirmish no matter what. Once the second set is off the map, we get a couple minute break before the Rift Herald spawns. Now Rift Herald will spawn at 14 minutes instead of as early as it did before. Just a quick reminder, if you want to stay prepped for Season 14, head on over to GameLeap.com where I've made hundreds of courses to get you on track as soon as possible. You won't have to waste your time scouring the internet for all the hidden tips and tricks that these champions have. Instead, they'll be easy to access right at your fingertips, so you'll be able to get onto the Rift as quick as you can learn. The Rift Herald has also been slightly reworked. Instead of it only being a automatic battering ram, we can actually load ourselves into it like a battle sled from Arena or perhaps Nexus Blitz, and then drive it straight into the enemy turret. If we collide with an enemy turret, we are given a shield and then spat out of the back of Shelly, and then we're able to use it again afterwards once she recovers after a short delay. The autonomous version of this charge will deal less damage, where the driven one will deal significantly more damage, and of course the shield that we're granted will then allow us to dive if we choose to take that route. This is a great change for junglers that want to dive in the early game, or for those of you that just want to get in as an engaged champion. What's really neat about this Rift Herald is that we can also whiff against a turret and then crash ourselves into a wall to engage on a non-engaged champion. Let's say we're playing something like Vlad that wants backline access, and we have a Rift Herald that's been dropped near us. We can steer this into the middle of an enemy team around a mid-skirmish, and then get free backline access without having to burn a summoner. This is one of the many creative ways that we're going to be able to use this new Rift Herald, but most importantly, we want to use it to ram directly into a turret, get the shield, and then try to pressure the turret afterwards. There is a flaw to this strategy, of course, and that's if the enemy team collapses, they can engage on us as we're trying to greed the turret. The new Rift Herald kind of ignores this as well, because we can simply get into it and then drive the Shelly away and ensure that we get out safely. Now that we've covered the practicality and the uses that we have for the new Rift Herald, let's go ahead and cover the macro for it. Rift Herald after the patch will always spawn at 14 minutes. With all objectives, we want to be there about 45 seconds in advance so that we're able to secure vision control. This is most important for the support players out there and for the junglers as well. It is not uncommon for junglers and supports to have sweeper at this point in the game. You need to be denying vision while also getting your own. The support and the jungle ideally should be walking together so they're allowed to establish vision control without worry of one of them getting picked. While this is about to happen, or while it is happening, it is up to the mid and top laner to get priority in their lane so they're able to collapse on this objective before the enemy team does. If we're at Rift Herald 10 seconds before the spawn, but we've just pushed a fresh wave into the enemy turret, they have to deal with that before they come to the Rift, or they will be denied that resource. A team that loses multiple waves and a Rift Herald on top of that and then a turret afterwards is a team that is more than likely going to lose the game. Currently on live servers, the first team to get a Rift Herald has about a 60% win rate on average. I foresee this win rate being significantly higher in Season 14. This is due to the Void Grubs being such a strong objective, and also because of the fact that Rift Herald spawns later. The team that's winning already will have more pressure around the Rift Herald, be able to take that advantage, and then snowball that even further. So taking or denying this objective is going to be vastly important for your early mid game. To put it more into perspective, one of the most snowbally objectives in the game, Dragon, has about a 63% average win rate for the first team that secures this objective. The sheer amount of gold that's placed on the interior turrets now is about equivalent to what Drakes give, so the stronger Rift Herald should net us more of these T2 and T3 towers, which will then result in us snowballing even harder. Baron is going to be the exact same as live servers. It's going to spawn in at 20 minutes like it does, but there's going to be 3 different variations that will open up different parts of the map. The Hunting Baron will leave the map the same, the All-Seeing Baron will open up the pit with a giant line through the center, and then the Territorial Baron creates a small wall in front of the Baron pit. The macro changes for this are going to be relatively minor. We can ward more aggressively at the All-Seeing Baron. The normal Hunting Baron is going to have the same ward retention, and then the Territorial Baron will also have these same ward spots as well. Like all Barons, we only want to get vision here if the Drake is going down, or if our team wants to play the Baron side of the map, which is quite unusual. Ideally, you want to get Dragons before you get Baron. I wouldn't worry too much about this objective. It's basically the same as it is on live servers. The most important part of the Baron, though, is that it will spawn in Void Empowered camps at 20 minutes with it, including Scuttle Crab. This Scuttle Crab is really OP because it grants us an empowered version of the Scryer's Bloom, which will allow us to clear vision very easily. If you are a jungle player, you really need to pay attention to this empowered Scuttle Crab, and you need to be taking it on spawn every single time because it is just that strong. If the enemy team gets it, they can easily clear out all your vision before you're able to react. If you get it, then you can choke out the enemy team by starving them of information. You can bait Baron, you can force them to walk into you, you can start skirmishes in basically any way that you want in the jungle as long as we secure the Scuttle Crab, because the vision clearing mechanic that is on it is just that strong. A minor addition to this jungle as well is that we will get shareable buffs post 20 minutes once the Baron does corrupt the Rift. If you're a laner, leash him for your jungler, let the jungler get the last hit so that way they're able to get all the golden experience and you can still get the buff of the rest of your team. That about sums up all the new objective and macro changes. Let's go ahead and do a short recap. Void Grubs spawn in at 5 minutes. They spawn in 5 minutes after they're killed again. If we get 5 to 6 of these grubs, we get a super powered version of the buff that spawns in minions for us, which we can use to pressure turrets extra hard, and they also spawn if we crash the Shelly into the turrets. Rift Herald has been reworked to be more durable, but also drivable. This will allow us to crash it into turrets, giving ourselves a shield, which makes diving easier and safer to go for, and we're able to drive it multiple times. We don't just have to stop after one charge. Baron is unchanged, treat it as you would normally. Anyways, this was Unsung with GameLeap. Thank you all for watching. watching and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you guys in the next video.